Can we do something that I love to do? Can we take a picture of this entire audience and send it out on Twitter to Barack Obama and David Cameron? Can we get everybody in the center? Just come into the, just wherever you're at, just coming into the center more. And turn off that projector just for a second so we get a picture. But yeah, we're gonna send this out. So this is the way we do this. Stand up. Stand up. It's been a long 2 hours, right? And stretch, excuse me. Oh, that's good. Live stream. And it's on live stream as well. So stretch up one arm and, you know, put up a fist, throw up a peace sign. No lewd gestures, please. Let's keep it civil. And I'm going to get in the picture with you. Deborah Wallace, the producer of Gasland 2, will take the picture with us. You getting it wrong? Then you have to get further down. We're going to send, and we'll give you instructions.
Sweetheart.
Keep those arms up. So I would like, while I'm taking off the banjo, to get an update. Can we have the update from Tammy?
Tammy.
I'm so sorry. Tammy. Go ahead, please, because this is, the important thing here is we're going to obviously do a Q&A, but we also want to find out what's going on right now. So thank you.
Hi.
Tammy.
Thanks, guys. So I thought I might start talking to you about democracy to begin with. You know that wonderful thing where our government asks us our opinion on stuff? Yeah. And then we tell them what we think and then they take it into account before making decisions about stuff? Well, they only said I'd like to. I can't because it doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
When over 82% of the local residents of Balcombe said no to fracking, they were not listened to. We had police down on site, forming military formations actually, it was quite scary, making sure that those lorries full of chemicals and all those horrible things made it onto that site. When you've got Lord Brown being the CEO of Quadrilla, and also having the nerve to be advising our government on the safety of fracking, clearly it's a sham of a democracy. So who's protecting the environment, who's protecting us, and who's protecting you guys here in East Grinstead? So our camp came about because the call for help was heard. We came, we slept by the road, we slept by that drill. We witnessed the end of the birdsong on day 5 of the drilling. That was pretty sad. We saw the letters that Quadrilla wrote to the local residents, and we saw them write to apologise for the protests and the disruption we were causing in the village, which was ironic because after all we were only there because they were. We were taken to court by West Sussex County Council, who should have been listening to the local residents, because after all, we were trying to protect the local community and listen to their voices. In the end, we were taken to court because we were trying to do West Sussex County Council's job. So Quadrilla is left for now. And as you saw in the film, this is serious. It's really important that local communities, that your community, resist fracking in as many ways as you can. When all the legal routes have failed, direct action is pretty much the only thing left. And as Vanessa has said on a number of occasions, when does it become self-defence? Because by protecting our planet, we protect ourselves, we protect our children, our grandchildren, and generations that are going to come after. The time to begin the resistance against fracking is right now. As activists often say, don't panic, organise, and that's what needs to happen as soon as possible. You can print leaflets, hold meetings, give talks, educate everybody that you possibly can. And when you need us, and I think that the protectors that are here tonight will agree, when and if you need us, we will come. But we can't do it all ourselves, because we're also there to help to empower the local community, and we'll need your help. You have the right to clean air, clean water, health, and a decent, good environment. You have the right to say no to fracking. But if you don't, what you've seen in the film this evening may soon become a reality here too. Other places also need your help. You can look on Frack Off or Frack Free Sussex and Biff and all the other websites on the back of your leaflets to see where's affected by fracking. You can also network with these people online. You can visit them, support them. I know I heard tonight that Barton Marshall in Manchester now has trucks rolling through it, much like we had in Balcombe. It's really great to get together, to talk, to educate, but really, in the end, we need boots on the ground. We need more people to try and blockade. We need help to stop the trucks. Stopping the trucks in Balcombe, okay, it didn't stop the drilling, but it slowed them down. It let them know that we're not going to take it lightly. It got it out into the media. It made, it educated. And it's so important, direct action is frightening for a lot of people that have never done it before. But when you've done your petitions, written to your MPs, had a march, maybe outside Parliament, we did a big one up there. And when you reach the very sad and painful, bitter truth that our government isn't going to listen to us, that the system is not democratic, that there's corruption, there's only one thing left to do, and that's action, and that's the way it is. Thank you, everybody.
I want to welcome up to the stage Deborah Wallace, my producer, who's here tonight and is from Scotland and is going to continue this tour this rest of the week in Blackpool and then in Scotland, right? And I also would like some of the organizers, if you come up and just share the stage, and if there are questions about the local situation, that would really be helpful. So whoever wants to, from the organizing groups tonight, just come on up so that there's a, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not qualified to choose, but yeah, that's great. Thank you. So I mentioned that there's this other layer of contamination due to fracking, as you see, the contamination of our democracies. And I think that it's very clear that everywhere around the world that I've been, the best ways of organizing are all the ways of organizing. That what we have to do is create a very, I think, multiple tactics and very flexible ways of interacting with what is a worldwide campaign. Obviously, direct action is a huge part of that, and has woken up this country and the media in this country. But then there's all sorts of other things that have to happen to make that happen, which are the ways in which you can use the tools in the media to create awareness. You have these two films. You have The Sky is Pink, which is a short film that I made, which is online, totally free. There's another film called Split Estate. There's a lot of education and awareness that needs to be done through direct neighbor-to-neighbor communication. And if I can lend anything from our so far successful experience in New York and so far successful experience in the Upper Delaware River Basin, is that it takes all those kinds of actions working all together in sometimes coordinated ways and sometimes kind of haphazard ways. Sometimes there's a lot of different people doing many things, and the point is that I think, I'm not an organizer. I can't organize like a sock drawer. I can't. But I can make a movie, which is how I interacted with this. And that was the way I found my way in. And obviously, to me, this end of this film is a call to direct action. Because there are times when you cannot possibly just surrender your First Amendment rights because the congressman decides that that's what they want you to do. So getting arrested at the end of this film, although it was not my intention going into that hearing, my intention was to tape the hearing, and I thought they were going to fold, but to me, putting it there at the end of the film is a call to direct action when you're in that position and when you have to be. At the same time, like, my principal involvement is to make films, and that's my creative way into this, and I would encourage everybody to do that in the way that makes them happy. You know, you have to interact with this movement in a way that makes you happy, that gives you a personal sense of satisfaction. On the other hand, you also have to just show up when the organizers say, and be a foot soldier. So it's equal parts, like this great individual responsibility to yourself and as an individual and individualism, and then this collective action that we all know that we have to sort of sit down and participate in. When Bill McKibben and Naomi Klein called everyone to the White House to get arrested to protest this Keystone Pipeline for tar sands development in North America and the United States, I just went, you know, all right, fine, I'm going, you know, sit down in front of the White House. You know, this has nothing to do with what I can contribute. I did actually make a short film about it, but you know, that second part of it is super important, that you just sort of say, all right, I'm taking part in this collective action. We're much, much stronger as a collective group of people. And I think that when you have a strong movement that's starting to go, there are a lot of growing pains. There are a lot of people fighting over positions. There are people fighting over personal stuff. There's people fighting about things. And that's just something that we went through in New York. I remember when people were saying, oh, this is the New York City watershed. You only want to protect the watershed. What about the rest of the state? People were starting to fight with each other. You know, and eventually it was all became boiled down to, we want a statewide ban. And because there was so much activity and passion and excitement and energy about it, there is an anti-fracking organization in every tiny little town throughout the southern tier of New York State. And they're all communicating with each other. They created a structure called New Yorkers Against Fracking with 180 organizations in it. And they're like mom and pop anti-fracking organizations run by 6 people out of somebody's kitchen. And it's working. And the communication is getting better and better and better. So what you guys have to do as a stronghold is to go out and make contact with all these other towns and spread that message around so that you have that type of communication. And you can work symbiotically with each other in that one message. Because if France can ban fracking, you know, and the Netherlands can ban fracking, and Bulgaria can ban fracking, you can ban fracking in the UK. And that's got to be the mission. Because, you know, you give them an inch and they will take the whole town. So I really want to engage in a dialogue. We don't have that much time, so let's just have questions. There's one. Maybe stand up and speak really loud.
Sorry.
There's a mic.
And there's a mic.
Is there any information? All right.
Almost. Oh, there you go.
Is there any information about the amount of global warming that the methane from these is contributing?
Yeah.
Because that's something that I think people may see.
Here's the problem. At current levels of emissions, both carbon dioxide, methane, and all the other greenhouse gases, we reach 2 degrees of warming at 2042. 2042 is not very far from now in the generational time. You know, we know that frack gas is emitting these huge quantities of methane. We don't have overall numbers because there hasn't been that kind of study. We do know that methane in the atmosphere at Mauna Loa, where they're measuring it, is going up and up and up. So when we're looking at the current emissions profile, we have to drastically scale back our use of fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas. And what fracking means, when you can look at this from so many different angles, right? Water contamination at a local level, air pollution and health risk at a local level, the fragmentation and industrializations of communities at a local or regional level, right? The destruction of our democracies and our forms of democratic participation, another huge problem. The health issues that go, you know, the toxification in the groundwater that will last for centuries. But to me, what fracking means is a transition from conventional oil development to unconventional oil and gas development. And we know from looking at all these sources of carbon that could be burned all over the world, that we cannot burn the unconventional sources. We cannot burn tar sands, we cannot burn frack gas, we cannot burn mountaintop removal coal. We have to leave those unconventional sources in the ground and wean ourselves off of what's already there in terms of the conventional sources. So frack gas, James Hansen, the man who first brought climate change to light in the 80s in the US Congress, calls fracking game over for the planet. So if you go ahead in this direction, it's not just about fracking your town or my town. It's about the fact that this is 50 or 60 years of dependency and addiction to fossil fuels, oil and gas. And that's their plan. It's a paradigm shift. The paradigm of conventional oil and gas is expiring, and they know it. So the world energy source has to change. And it's either going to change to these unconventional and extreme forms of energy, like deep water drilling you see so disastrously in the Gulf, tar sands development, frack gas, and all these extreme coal techniques which are horrific, or it's going to move to renewable energy. So as you campaign against fracking, for a ban against fracking, equal parts has to be about replacing the fuel. And you have to think a lot about how are we developing solar, and how is every parking lot in the entire UK going to be having solar shading, you know, or how are we going to develop offshore and onshore wind where it's appropriate, because otherwise the choices are very limited. And of course all of that is coupled with efficiency, and there has to be a real emphasis on efficiency, because the numbers for global climate change are devastatingly scary. 2042, 2 degrees of warming, IPCC tells us we lose 1/4 to 30% of this plant and animal species on the planet. That's a lot of goodbyes. That's a dramatically different planet, as Bob Howard says. And it's possible that you start to see, you know, major sections of industrial civilization just collapse and fail. So we don't have that time. We don't have time for a bridge fuel. We don't have 20 years of natural gas to develop. We have to figure this out. And one other thing that's amazing, I believe, about what's going on in the anti-fracking movement is that y'all are so in the target zone, right? So am I. But it has to be a catalyst towards making this next great leap on the planet Earth, towards renewable energy. Because renewable energy, right before fracking, was this sort of science fiction type of a thought. Oh yeah, we'll have renewable energy when we can, you know, drive Buicks to the moon and, you know, beam me up with them. You know, sometime in the fictional future. But now you know you need renewable energy or you're going to get fracked. And we need renewable energy or you're going to continue to see these things, these horrific effects of climate change. So it's got to be a dual campaign. It has to be about replacing the fuels. And the other good thing about this, those forms of energy are inherently more democratic. They're not as easily exported or exploited by these huge companies. They're more distributed in their generation. So there's a lot of big answers there having to do with how we develop energy going forward. I know it's a long-winded answer, but it's a huge, important thing to me.
Hi, Josh.
Hello.
Tomorrow, I just want to say about that, the distributed energy side of life, because I think many of us have spent the last summer, this summer, in a really big anti-space. It's extraordinarily emotionally draining, but it's also brought lots of friendships, and it's also made us much wiser. And I think everybody here did their part in getting a bigger global picture, of which you've been incredibly inspiring to too, so thank you for that. Tomorrow, Forest Row are having a meeting, an energy community meeting, where we want to take that anti into something pro. Are you doing the same thing you did in America?
Yes.
How is that working?
Well, the last big rally and the biggest rally against fracking in New York was called a Crossroads rally. It was anti-fracking pro-renewables. Mark Jacobson, the renewable energy professor from Stanford that you see in the film, is getting increasingly more popular. He just went on David Letterman, which was really weird. It was like, you know, they don't usually have scientists on David Letterman talking about solutions. And myself, Mark Ruffalo, Mark Jacobson, some renewable energy bankers from California have started something called the Solutions Project. The Solutions Project is to match communities up with those renewable energy providers and the resources that you can employ. So that at a local level, you know, if this room should become a transition town, a transition team, you know? And it's hard after a 2-hour movie to then stand up and like create a transition team. But what we're trying to do is figure out how we can give that information to the anti-fracking movement in the United States and all over the world and create a model. Jacobson wrote a renewable energy plan for New York State. How do you get New York State off of fossil fuels by 2030? He's also written one for California. It's a pretty massive transformation of society when you look out there and you see all the things that run off of fossil fuels. But what's a more massive transformation of society is the kind of thing that we saw in New York City with Hurricane Sandy, with the Atlantic Ocean pouring into the New York City subway system, or Hurricane Irene, which swamped upstate, or the kinds of impacts that we're seeing from global climate change right now. I mean, think about how many people, it's a small example, how many of you had cell phones 10 years ago? Now they're ubiquitous and everywhere. We can have solar panels, we can have wind farms, we can have the things that will transform the society. The technology is not a problem, the industrialization base is not a problem. The problem is the political will. And the important thing here is, unless you stop fracking, we're going to retard that development to such a degree that we're in real trouble in terms of the global climate. But you can sign up for the Solutions Project at, I believe the website is thesolutionsproject.org.